Drac is the Michael Jordan of harvesting oysters. I heard stories that he would harvest so many oysters that his boat will almost sink. Anyways, I want to share a deeply personal story about a body of artwork I created titled Drac, Oystermen of the Lowcountry. This series started more than a decade ago. It is a visual narrative told through 3 different mediums, each capturing the essence of a day in the hard life of an oysterman along the banks of the May River in Bluffton, South Carolina. Drac is a truly remarkable person, very charismatic, a great personality, a 3rd-generation oysterman that works at the Bluffton Oyster Factory, the last shucking factory in the Southeast. So this project is incredibly close to my heart because it chronicles a series of interconnected moments, a chain of events that unfold on a cold 23-degree cloudless winter day. It was so cold they had a boat heater on the bow of the boat, a Weber smoker packed full of wood to keep their hands and feet warm, and you'll see that throughout the artwork of the series. I wanted to depict not just a single moment, but the entire rhythm of his day, the details of the physicality of his job, the hardcore environment he has to work in, and the dangers of our 8 to 12 foot dramatic tide. And if you're not careful, that tide will take you out to the ocean and it will not bring you back, just like it did another oysterman many, many years ago. In 2012, the production began in the first of the 3 series of Drac harvesting oysters. So the first medium I used marked the beginning of my artistic journey in the early 2000s. At the beginning, it was more of a folk art style, salvage wood and roofing tin from derelict tenant houses throughout Chester County, South Carolina. And this is my style for years. I would get the metal from the roof, cut it, and bend it around a wooden frame, and this was the canvas to paint on using white acrylic paint. They were muted, only using one single color of white paint, allowing the texture of the tin either to be the foreground or the background. And once the, 15 paintings were completed, I always believe in showcasing my work beside art galleries. Press release was sent out, invitations were sent out, and this was my 2nd show at Shell Hall, where they had a beautiful courtyard behind the clubhouse lined with 2 rows of palm trees, and I would hang my artwork on the trees. Great turnout, sold the majority of the artwork. And I feel like I had truly captured our local culture by painting Drac. Over the next 6 years, I continued to paint Drac on my spare time at the Gallery Without Walls right there on Calhoun Street, an open air art gallery right in the heart of Bluffton. And this is before the town grew into the bustling community as a day. 1 car would go down Calhoun Street every 3 or 4 hours. Back then, the opportunities were very limited with tours, though it was a great hub for locals to come have a beer or 2. So sustaining an art gallery wasn't going to happen, and after 6 years I shut it down, and to be quite honest, I was kind of burned out with Drac. Fast forward to 2019, I was commissioned for a world-renowned interior designer for an art collector to create 2 very small paintings of Drac, 18 by 22 inches. This time using oil paints. The challenge was on, as I rarely work with oils. I had to teach myself the fundamentals of oil painting and began 2 paintings, those 2 paintings over a 2-month period. And it was a dream come true to be an artist, to step out of the construction industry and to paint. But the devil are in the details of the designer. And this was the biggest challenge by far. It was a whole new world for me, and I focused intensely on capturing every single detail in the paintings, studying the shells to his movement, and trying to create it in such a small area because I'm so used to creating big paintings. These two paintings reignited my passion for art and set me on a whole new path, and decided to create a whole nother body of art of Drac. So I turned my living room into an atelier. So over the next 3 months, I painted about 8 oil paintings, followed by a solo show, an attempt to relaunch Drac into the art world, and the journey began. I wanted to go big, really wanted to hone in on every aspect, every detail of the paintings. So the only way I can really comprehend of painting these shells is, have you ever seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? I would turn myself this big and I would walk around the pluff mud and look at these shells to study the contours, the lines, the shapes, and the colors. There are so many different colors in these shells. That was by far very challenging because it was just tedious to get every single shell exactly right. They have to look like oyster shells. So that was 50% of the paintings. The other 50% is Drac himself. Again, the physicality, what it takes to trunk through the pluff mud with the razor blade shells all around you. Going up to his body, his champion hoodie on. In the earlier paintings of the day, he still had his Philadelphia Sixers beanie on. So took that off. Now he's got a bead of sweat coming down his head, the dishwashing gloves, and just his movement of going and taking the container of shells to the boat. That was an incredible journey to create those 8 paintings. It was such I got so attached to creating those, just the details, you know. One painting, it shows his strings of his hoodies moving with the wind, you know. Recently, I decided to switch mediums and revisit the series of Drac's story told through pen and ink. You see, after years of working with acrylics and oils, I felt like I needed to kind of strip things back and explore a whole new way of storytelling, one that's raw, bold, and full of contrast. Revisiting a series with pen and ink was more than just an experiment. It was a way to reconnect with the raw emotion behind Drac's story. It stripped away the color and the distraction, forcing me to focus on form, light, and shadow. This journey taught me that switching mediums isn't about abandoning what's done before. It's about extending my storytelling toolkit. And sometimes less is really more. As I look back on the journey capturing Drac through so many different mediums, acrylics, oils, and pen and ink, one thing remains very, very clear. It's all about the story told through my art. It's about honoring a man whose life is intertwined with the tides of the May River. A story that's slowly changing with time. Soon the tides will shift, literally, and there may become a day when there are no more oystermen left in Bluffton. And gosh, I hope that's not the case. The tradition, the culture, the community are evolving. And that's why I dedicated a decade of telling his story through my art. That said, I'll always revisit Drac. Maybe with watercolors this time. There's a wonderful softness and transparency in watercolors that I think will add a whole new layer to his story. And I tell you what, over the years, Drac and I have become more than just artist and subject. We've become great friends. His resilience, his connection to the river, and his stories have left a mark on me. And I am grateful to have shared this journey with him and with y'all.